Well, hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Johnny and you're watching Hillbilly Modeling. Now this is going to be part 4 of our TAMIYA Vought F4U-1A Corsair in 1/48 scale. So we've got a few things to do in this particular video. We got to do some detail painting and of course our decals. And there are a lot of decals on aircraft, and this particular one's got quite a few. So let's just go ahead and jump down to the bench here and see how far we get. So the first thing we're going to tackle here is going to be our flaps. So now this is that green, that yellow green. That's 1 part yellow and 1 part green. I used olive green, but this is the same color that we used in our wheel well bays and the cockpit and inside the engine cowling. So we're going to use that on these structural elements here that we can see right in the ends of our flaps, because these flaps, we're going to have them in the down position, and you'll be able to see this stuff. So it'd probably be nice if we had something to look at. So we're going to go ahead and paint these up with that green. And as you can see, it really highlights those areas nicely. Yeah, I think it's going to look really good for us once we get the aircraft assembled. Now, don't forget, we got 6 flaps to do, so we need to carry on with this and finish all those up. Now, I also use that green to touch up some overspray on the hinges for our landing gear bay doors there. Next up, we'll take care of our landing gear. And these are already primed up in that German Panzer gray. And we're going to be using this craft paint. Now, this is a metallic silver. And when we paint that over the black, it's going to come out somewhat darker. And I kind of like mine a little bit darker than if you had painted it over a gray color primer. Now, of course, you don't have to use craft paints. You can use any of the name brand stuff, the TAMIYA, Humbrol, what else we got? Vallejo Air, and all those different types of paints. What I like about these craft paints, though, especially in this metallic range, is that it does have a gloss finish. So once it dries, and it being an acrylic, we won't have to go back in and repaint these with gloss clear. So next up, we're going to be using that same gray that we've been using to come back in and highlight our tires. Now this is the mixture that I used in the airbrush, so it is rather thin. I'll have to put 2 coats on it here, but the added benefit of it being thin is that it's really easy to run it right around the rim of the wheel itself, and we have a nice trim look when we're done. And of course, we can't forget about our tail wheel. Now, this one's a little bit more difficult to paint. Number 1, because of its size, and number 2, because it's molded into the actual wheel mount itself. So we'll just get a couple of coats on there and being really careful not to paint something that's not supposed to be rubber. So next up, we're going to be using a little bit of chrome here. Now, this is Model Masters chrome, which has been discontinued, unfortunately. I love these Model Masters paints, but when I run out, I guess we'll go back to some other chrome. But this is an enamel-based paint, so we're going to have to give this plenty of time to dry. And we're painting up these struts here for our landing gears. This is the rear landing gear, and of course for our left and right main gears there is a small strut there too, so we'll go ahead and give that a coat of chrome. So now we're going to move on to a little bit of rust here, and once again that's Model Masters, and this is an acrylic and it is water based. Makes it really easy to clean up, and these are the exhaust outlets that we have at the front bottom section of the fuselage here, and we'll just get those painted up. There's not much there to paint. We just have to be careful that we're not going to get that on our white. There we go. That looks pretty good. Now we just have to do the other one. So we do have 3 little vents, I guess is what they are. TAMIYA has a call out for satin black. We're just going to use our gray for that, the dark Panzer gray. Now we can go ahead and disassemble the aircraft. Now, if you remember, we put this engine cowl and the engine mounting plate and then a cowl flaps on using micro mask, and that should make it fairly easy to clean off. So we'll just have to scrape that off there and get these parts cleaned up. Now, as you can see, where our intake pipes are, that's going to be a little bit visible from those cowl flaps being open. We'll be able to see those. So we're going to have to take care of that overspray, and we will do that just with that mixture. I'm not going to go back to the air brush and do that. We can just brush that on real quick. And it being an acrylic paint, it's going to dry really fast, so it's not an issue. And while we wait for this to dry for us, I kind of forgot about these cowl flaps here. Now, these are either in the open or closed position, you know, for airflow over the engine to help cool or keep the engine warm, depending upon, you know, the flight mode that you're in. But the inside of them is that same interior green, that 1 part yellow, 1 part green that we have mixed up, so we'll paint that up. So next up, we're going to use some charcoal gray here. Again, craft paint, and it's water-based acrylic. And we're going to paint in our, these are the intake pipes that goes to the cylinders. It's a nice little detail there, and they should be visible with those open cowl flaps. So yeah, we're just going to paint those gray. So next up, we have our propeller to take care of. So the first thing we're going to do, use this daffodil yellow, and we're going to be painting the tips of our propeller blades. Since it's already primed up in that gray, the yellow is going to cover really nicely, and we're not going to have a whole lot of coats for that. Now, to me, it does have some paint lines scribed onto the tip. They're actually molded right in, so we can just go ahead and put our masking tape over top of that once that yellow paint is dried, of course. Make sure that it's fully dried, and we'll mask those up. And with them all masked up, we're ready to go and spray our props. Now, this is the Panzer Gray, which is kind of a worn, faded black is kind of how we're using it in this build. Now, once that dries, we can go ahead and pluck off our masking tape there, revealing those nice yellow tips. I think those look really good. And just remember, if you paint your prop black first, then it's going to take a lot more work with the yellow to get it to cover up. So it's easier to do that if you're painting over top of a light color. So for our hub in the center, we're going to be using this acrylic silver here. And this is a Model Master paint. It's getting a little old, but it still works. So we'll take and use this to paint that hub. And we're just going to brush this on. You could, if you wanted to, do a lot of masking and spraying and stuff like that. But since it is such a small area, I feel it's just easier to go ahead and brush this on. And that way we don't have to worry about cleaning our airbrush afterwards. And with that done, that's looking pretty good. I like the look of it. Of course, we still got decals to put on and some panel liner and stuff like that, but that's pretty good. So here is our bomb. And for that, we need a dark green. So I've mixed up some olive green and added black to it to get us kind of this really dark ordnance green. I think that that's going to match pretty good what color our bomb needs to be. So we're going to have to go and spray our bomb and get it nice and green there.
And here we are. We've got it painted up, and it dries really quick. These water-based acrylics, they don't take long to dry at all. Now, Tamiya has also got us that nice little line for our stripe etched in. Well, not really etched, but molded in to the bomb itself. And that's our guide here, and we'll just go ahead and mask that off. That way we can go ahead and spray it, and once it dries, we can go ahead and peel off our masking tape. And I should have done this at the same time that I did the propeller, but I didn't really think about it, so I had another airbrush cleaning episode that I had to go through because of that. And then for our detonator on the bomb, we're just going to go ahead and touch that up with a little bit of silver. So my battery kind of ran dead on my camera, so I didn't catch all the painting I did here for our hard point for our bomb. So basically the actual straps there, or metal brackets, are in flat steel, and then the centers of them, that little triangular piece there, I did paint that with the Panzer Gray because it just kind of looked funny, so I thought I'd just darken that in so it's not that noticeable. Next up, we can turn our attention to the engine assembly. So we're just going to go, we've already cleaned these up, and it's ready to be assembled, so we're just going to use the thick Tamiya cement here and mount the engine onto the that back plate section there, and then we can install that into the cowling, and making sure that the very wide tab at the top is lined up with that large portion or tab that sticks out on our top of our cowling there. And I'm just going to be using the regular Tamiya extra thin here. It seems to be able to do the job there. And next up, we have our engine cowl flaps. We're going to go ahead and put those into place. Now, since we painted all this as a unit, we're going to make sure that there is no gap between the cowl and those flaps, because we don't want that gray plastic to show through. And so we need to make sure that that's fully seated for us once we get the cement in place. And yeah, so that looks really good. So now that this is a single unit, I am going to cut a little piece of paper here, just a paper disc. And the reason for that is the engine is done. It's painted up and everything. So we're just going to stick our paper right in there, and that'll kind of protect it from the overspray, because we're going to have to do some clear coating. And to be able to hold everything, we're going to be using just a tapered dowel there, and that'll hold it secure enough so that we can get everything painted up. So next up, I think we need to go ahead and install our flaps. And that's going to make it easier on us in the long run. I mean, we've already got the little detail painting done on the end sections of all of our flaps, so we need to go ahead and get those installed. And I'm just using the thick cement here for those extension pieces, and then wherever I think I can drop in a little bit of Tamiya extra thin, I go ahead and put that in too, just to give it some more strength. And we'll need to do the flaps on the wing itself. So that's the wing roots and the wings, and a total of 6 flaps, 3 per side. And right where these flaps actually touch the wing, we're going to use a little bit of Tamiya extra thin there, just to make sure everything stays in alignment. So now we're going to use some Testors enamel paint here. This is flat silver. And we have some lights that are on the wings themselves here, and we're just going to go in and paint these, being very careful. Now, you really don't have to get the paint down into that little bitty crack where the frame goes around the bezel, goes around the these lights. Because we're going to be using some panel liner on there, and that'll really dress it up nice for us, and that way we don't have to worry about getting too close down inside there. And then as you can see, I did reorient the wing around so that I could paint without having to worry about getting too close to things that we didn't want painted. And now we don't want to forget, we do have our lights on the ends of our wingtips too, so we're going to paint that silver also. So next up is this piece of wire, and I really wish I had thought about this sooner, but you know, later than sooner than whatever. It's better than too late at all. But basically what it is just a piece of wire that we can use to snap into those the ends of those wing roots, which is mounted to the fuselage, of course, and then clip into the tail wheel bay. And yeah, that way we have something to hold on to, and it's much easier for us to paint the aircraft this way. And if I'd have thought of this sooner, then it would have been easier all the way around. But better late than never, right? And the added benefit is that we can just set it down and let our paint dry and don't have to worry about it. Speaking of painting again, we're going to give everything a good coat here of our X22, which is a gloss clear. And that's going to get everything ready for our decals, or decals if you prefer, and panel liner and all that stuff. So this is mixed for my airbrush. I do thin it out so that it flows very well. And we're going to need that nice smooth surface for the application of our decals, or decals. And these are the tools that I use. I like the self-gripping tweezers to hold on to the decals, and then a regular pair of tweezers, and then of course a toothpick, and lukewarm water, and a piece of paper towel, and what have you. Also, we're going to be using the micro set solution that is an additional adhesive, and it really helps the decals sit and adhere to the model surface. And then for those stubborn decals that don't want to settle down, we have micro sol, which is a little bit more aggressive of a decal solvent that'll really soften those decals. And if you know anything about Tamiya decals, they are kind of thick, so they need all the help that they can get to get them to settle in. And then for the micro set and micro sol, I use different brushes for those. And then of course we have our decal sheet. And one of the first things we're going to do is make sure that we separate our decals into the individual pieces that we need. Since we have two different versions of this aircraft we can build, there's two different sets of decals for our roundels. But the other small decals that say things like inspection and lift here and what have you, those little bitty ones, there is only one set of those, so you don't want to lose any of them. So I'm not going to show everything when it comes to putting these decals on because it takes a long time to do. But you can see here I'm setting up to do one of our large decals. And this one is on the wing. So we're going to put our micro set solution on the wing, and you can see that I'm just putting it in little beads because we have that gloss clear coat, and that does not, it doesn't allow you to put a thin coat of this solution on there because it is kind of a water-based solution, so it kind of beads up anyway. So we just have to put a bunch of little dots, and that's okay because it's going to spread out underneath our decal. So after about a minute, because this is a large decal, of it's soaking in the water, it's ready to slide off the paper. And there we go. Now, in the event that you need to refloat this decal, you can either add water around the edges or some micro set around the edges just to get it to move across the surface a little bit. And if it doesn't want to move and you can't get it adjusted, just stick your hobby knife up under one corner and pull the whole thing off and then reapply it. But you do need to work kind of quick here because the micro set is still a softening solution. So if you kind of dilly-dally, it could try to adhere to the painted surface, and then you're just going to have a crooked decal. Not that that's a problem for me, because that's kind of like my signature of having, you know, a crooked decal, at least one on every kit that I build. That way I know I did it. So, and here, of course, we're just rubbing over, or not rubbing, but rolling over the decal to squeeze out any air bubbles or any liquids underneath. And then we go back in with our micro saw, and we're just going to put this right on top of the decal itself. Not so much on the paint, just mostly just try to keep it all on the decal. And that's going to really soften this up, or as much as you can. Now, like I said, these are very, very thick decals. So after 3 or 4 applications, if it's not doing exactly what you want it to do, and the decal doesn't want to settle down, then we may have to do something else, which in this case, it really didn't want to settle into those panel lines. So I just used the hobby knife and very carefully traced with a brand new blade along those grooves, and just cut the decal. And then we put some more microsol on it, and then it really settled into those no problem. And once everything's dry, we just come back in with a Q-tip and some water and clean up any paste that is on the surface there. We don't want anything to affect our next coat of paint, because we are going to go and seal these in. So we need to make sure that there's nothing on the surface that we don't want there. So this is just the X22 again, and we are going to go over all of our decals that we've installed, and that'll protect those from coming loose or absorbing any of the weathering products that we're going to be using, such as panel liner and things like that. And another benefit is that this thin clear coat that we're spraying on is going to collect around the edges of these decals, which will really help the transition between the decal and the painted surface. So that when we put our flat clear coat over it, when we're finally done with all of our weathering and everything, it'll give a much smoother surface and kind of help make those decals blend right into the model.
Okay, so that's going to have to wrap this video up because that's all I've got done. So, but our decals, or decals if you prefer, I think they look pretty good. Yeah, now we did have to use our craft knife, you know, your hobby knife, and I did have to score these in the panel lines a little bit so that the decal would settle down into those, so that those panel lines kind of show up, you know, and the decal's not stretched over top of them. And it's really easy to do. You just got to make sure, number one, your decal dries out, and then you come in and you just, with a very sharp blade, by the way. you don't want to do this with a dull blade that you're using to scrape, say, seam lines and stuff like that. Use a new blade for that, and you can take and score those and get them to really lay down if you're having trouble with those decals, showing those panel lines and those details. So that looked pretty good. And the other thing is this little piece of wire here. I wish I'd have thought of this earlier, but that's the way it is with modeling. You learn as you go, and having a good way to actually hold the aircraft is kind of important, so that you don't have your fingers all in your paint, especially when you're spraying. Now, we could have probably affixed something here in the front of the aircraft, in front of the fuselage, But I didn't have any dowels or anything to actually fit that, and I didn't feel secure with clamping something onto that little mounting flange right there for our engine and our engine cowl. So I went this route, and it seemed to work out pretty good. So that's an idea that I'm going to keep in my toolbox, my mental toolbox, for working on the next aircraft that we happen to do later on. So that's it for this video. Look forward to part 5 because we're going to finish this aircraft up. So that'll be all the panel line and the weathering, the chipping, and all that good stuff. So you're not going to want to miss that. Special thanks to all my subscribers. It's because of you guys that I keep making these videos, and I hope you enjoyed this one. And if you're new to the channel and not a subscriber, hope today I earned your subscription. So with that, guys, stay safe, and I'll see you next Friday.